was like a turning point.
Hi everyone, my name is Siamak and this is your Geosynthetics podcast. In this episode, I have traveled to Latin America, Chile. So as you have been following me with my podcast, we've gone to a lot of places around the world, and I'm very happy to have Francisco Pizzaro from Chile, Latin America, is our guest today. So welcome, Francisco, to my show, and thank you for your time and talking to me and my audience today.
Of course. Thank you very much, Siamak, for this opportunity. I'm glad to be part of your podcast and all the audience you have. So it's a great pleasure to share this conversation.
No worries. Perfect. So, Francisco, let's just start with your career in geosynthetics mainly. So I just want to know, we sort of got connected from the IGS, International Geosynthetic Society, which is a global community. And it's great that we can share ideas within that community. I want to know where everything is started for you in geosynthetics, and how did you get into this industry?
Sure. Well, it's been a while. I studied civil engineer, and nevertheless, I always was like the kind of sort of industrial architectonic kind of approach for my professional development. I always had this let's say characteristic of being involved in commercial business areas. So, nevertheless, as I said, I started civil engineering. My companies at the beginning, the companies I worked for at the beginning, were in the role of a sort of technical and also commercial role. So that gave me a lot of ideas of how the globalization was doing, how, of course, the business was affecting engineering and vice versa. But also, my career was, in a nutshell, involved sort of engineering and commercial approach. Basically, at the beginning in Chile and Peru, and after a couple of companies, the first time I met geosynthetics was 6 years ago in a multinational, in a regional company in Latin America that it's a big contractor in geosynthetics. I was the commercial manager for that company. That was the time I had the most contact with geosynthetics at the first time, especially in a country like Chile, which is extremely involved with geosynthetics. We probably are going to speak later about the relationship of Chile and Latin America with geosynthetics, but that was my first opportunity to be involved in geosynthetics. And then I worked for almost 3 years for an American company that specialized in geotextiles and erosion control products as a regional manager for Latin America, from Chile to the Patagonia. So that basically gave me the opportunity to travel all over the region to prescribe, to specify, and to sell the solutions, which of course gave me a broader view of the business, but of course a great opportunity to understand different cultures, which of course has encouraged me to keep being involved in this business. Is one of the things that I love the most. And in parallel, it came the opportunity to be involved in the IGS in Chile, the International Geosynthetic Society, the Chilean chapter. Nevertheless, was already established. It didn't have any, let's say, strong development. So with the whole board that we are currently working on, we have developed a strong chapter with the strong members, corporate and individuals. And the most important, in order to create a critical mass, that is more important to be involved with academia, with contractors, in order to bring geosynthetics. And besides that, of course, I'm now involved in working for Elidan, a company specialized in engineering and manufacture of drainage geocomposites. Again, being involved in the regional role, traveling a lot. Unfortunately, with this COVID thing, no travels, doing everything from from home. But so far, that has been my involvement in geosynthetics and in civil engineer. I have also a degree on finance because part of my role is also build the companies, and of course having a financial background is very important in order to understand financial and accountability risk. But anyway, that's my current duty in geosynthetics and engineering.
Perfect. No, that's that's an amazing career you started in geosynthetics. So, as you were talking about your passion for geosynthetics, I thought my second question would be around basically what you see in geosynthetics that makes that amazing and sort of gets your attention. You know, where you started in this industry. I think you've been sort of thinking about, you know, technical sides and sales and professional development of your career as well. I think, yeah, my question is basically, what are the main characteristics of geosynthetics that you found interesting for yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, the first time I touched base with geosynthetics, I basically had no idea. It was like 6 years ago. Of course, you know, geotextiles, geomembranes. In the case of Chile, geomembranes are very well known because we are one of the most important, or at least in terms of consumption per capita, one of the countries with more, let's say, purchase of geomembranes due basically to the mining. But one of the things that caught my attention was an industry that had that is still very young. We are talking about an industry of about 50 years old, and an industry which is basically related with engineering, construction, and the most important thing is that it's changing the way things are being done. The idea to change, for example, using a geotextile instead of a couple of inches of soil in a road, or using an erosion control product instead of shotcrete, or using a geocell in a channel instead of using another type of liner. I mean, it's an industry that is creating another type of way of doing things. It's definitely the pioneer in terms of the use of materials. We're basically talking about polymers, and the way the technology behind the polymers, it's basically amazing how they can resist, how they can perform, the shapes they can take, and the uses they can take are basically infinite. So those are one of the characteristics. Basically, also the versatility they have in order to become a solution for the engineering and construction industry. And the most important thing is that we're still just in the beginning of this era. If we take probably the volumes geosynthetics every year, we are talking about probably a $1 billion industry. But I totally positive, and the IGS also, and all the organizations that are pushing for geosynthetics, all of them agree that we are just in the early stage of development. There are many things to change. We're talking, and also to change the way engineering construction has been historically done. So that takes time. Many people sometimes are more reluctant of the use of geosynthetics, and that's one of the things I love the most in my company. When I travel different countries, and you take a sample of a product, and they just see it and say how this product is going to perform this way, or is this product is going to resist the UV lights, or it's going to be able to resist or it's going to perform under a certain amount of shear resistance. So anyway, it's amazing how the product have evolved, and how year by year the geosynthetics, based on the technology, on the technology behind each company, has been able to change the mindset of the engineering construction industry, and that's one of the things I love the most.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Very interesting for me, Francisco, when you talk about the development of geosynthetics in Latin America, because talking to different people like from Europe, from Canada, United States, here in Australia, and also Middle East, like I've had discussions with people about how geosynthetics has been developing in those countries, and how like the industry, like general industry, has been sort of reacted to that as a somehow, like you said, 40, 50 years ago they were new material, and we are really probably in a lot of countries in a stage that we don't want to call them new material, because we think they should be quite established, because we like there has been great examples of the usage um, in the past that we can just refer to, and it has sort of proven an established part of the civil geotechnical industry at the moment. It's going to be my next question, I think, about particularly where you come from, um,
Mhm.
Chile, and maybe surrounding countries. I know Brazil has a great history in geosynthetics.
Yes,
Peru, as you mentioned. Mining industry has a lot of demand for geosynthetics. As we know,
indeed.
yeah, I just want to know, how do you see that development happening in Latin America, or particularly in Chile, where you're from?
Sure. You mentioned an industry that, in the case of many countries in Latin America, especially those that are more related with the Andean, with the Andes. I'm talking about Chile, Peru, and Colombia, are more involved with the mining industry, especially Chile and Peru, with the copper mining, and those industry are the backbone in terms of GDP for those countries. So at the end, they attract a lot of investment, and investment is equal to a lot of suppliers, a lot of technical innovation. And mining has shown, probably in this case, we have some similarities with Australia, in order to attract different type of new products. And when we say new products, new solutions that basically change the way the historically engineering and construction has been done. I mentioned you first about, in the case of Chile. Chile is one of the, probably the number one user in terms of per capita in geomembranes. They use the quantity they get for basically for tailing dams, for evaporation ponds, for big surfaces, in order to, of course, containment. It's huge. It's huge. We can talk about also the potential of geosynthetics in Latin America. And if you say, of course, compared to Europe or Middle East, or also Australia, where it's more developed. Take an example. Take an example just in the case of landfills. Landfills in Europe, of course, there's no way, if you are gonna build a landfill, of course, you need to use geosynthetics. In Latin America, it's not mandatory yet. It's not mandatory in some countries to use GCL, or use a drainage system, or use several liners, like, of course, geomembrane and some type of geotextile. It's basically done like the old ways. I mean, a couple of some inches of clay, and a geomembrane is just that. So if you take a look at the potential of the business in Latin America for geosynthetics, and of course the opportunity we have to make things better with geosynthetics is huge. I'm just wondering about, for example, in Brazil, at the end of 2019, I believe it was, there was a big failure in a tailing dam in Brazil, in Brumadinho, from a mining company called Vale. They actually was the second was the second failure. And if you see the one of the reason of the failure was basically a failure due to drainage. So how could geosynthetics could improve the drainage of that, and who could avoid the destruction or the failure of that tailing dam? It could be done with a good drainage system. So there are many projects, many challenges that geosynthetics can take, and especially in Latin America, where we're still in some countries in an underdeveloped stage. If you compare to probably to Europe, Middle East, or Australia, of course, you guys are more developed. There's no need to make a big effort in prescribing a product because it's mandatory. But in Latin America, it's not mandatory, and we need to encourage the use of those products. And that's also part of my role in my company in drainage geocomposite, but also in the IGS, where our role is to encourage the use of geosynthetics, talk to the academia. Probably, if we take a look at the university or engineering schools, probably there are some classes related to geosynthetics. Unfortunately, in Latin America, there is not, or it's quite rare to find some concepts or related to geosynthetics. So if you see, there's a lot of job to do, a lot of work to do yet, and that's one of the reasons I'm extremely involved in this duty that is also part of taking the engineering and construction industry to a next step.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think you sort of raised the next question already with the Global Society, IGS, International Geosynthetic Society. One of the really interesting statements that I had from Kent von Mobeck from Germany when I did the podcast with him about the Global Society, or generally society activity, because I've been asking this type questions from almost all my guests. And I remember Kent mentioned that, you might have a passion for yourself and you're always planning, how should I do this? Where should I go? Who should I talk to? What should be my plan to sort of start from A to get me to B in terms of my goals? But then when you get actually involved with a society activity, then you realize you're not alone. There's another person in Chile, there's another person in New Zealand, someone in Middle East, someone in Germany, someone in United States. We all actually share that passion, and some of them actually have done those things in the past, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So they've gone through that journey, and being able to share that, in a society and somehow see what everyone else is doing and not feeling alone. I think that's a great feeling. That myself, every time I have conversations with people around the world in the geosynthetics, I have that strong feeling about the society activity. It gives you power and gives you energy and gives you sort of passion for future. So you're now the president of IGS Chile, which is great. And we have been talking, because I'm doing the same role in Australia, talking about possibilities for doing events or activities, or sharing our opinions, ideas. I want you to talk about IGS Chile and how you got involved in that, and what are some of the ideas that you're thinking about at the moment.
Sure. The IGS Chile, in this case, the Chilean chapter, was already founded like 14 years ago. But as happens in so many countries, it was sleeping a little bit, because at the end, it depends on the passion of the people. And of course, the IGS International wanted that the Chilean chapter has some activity, because in Chile, if you take a important look, if you take a look, there is opportunity for geosynthetics, not only for mining, but for many industries, for infrastructure, for environmental, with the landfills and that kind of projects. So we get along with a couple of important some guys in the industry of geosynthetics, and said, we have this opportunity to rebuild the IGS. So we got the support of the IGS International to rebuild the IGS Chile. That was like almost 3 years ago. So we also received the support of the Chilean Chamber of Construction, that is currently our administration, and it acts like our administration board in order to help us create many events. But we started from scratch, considering that nevertheless there was already IGS Chile founded. Little has been done, so we needed to start from scratch in order to start talking with the stakeholders, sorry, the decision takers. I mean, basically, who are the decision takers? Basically, engineering companies, consulting companies, construction, and all the world of geosynthetics in Chile. I'm talking about companies that do manufacture geosynthetics in Chile, installers, companies that prescribe geosynthetics, and also with some chapters in the region that gave us the push to move forward with this task. And I'm talking basically about Brazil and Peru, which are more developed. They have a couple of chapters that are well established and did this at the beginning. So with their support, we started creating some, let's say, an important approach. So some members, basically corporate, individual, take part of this in order to start creating critical mass. So we currently have more than 10 corporate members, more than 30 individual members that currently are involved in technical session, webinars, technical courses. Last year, we made 2 courses related to the application of geosynthetics in mining and GCL. And currently for this year, we have some activities related for not only mining, but also environmental, especially landfills, which is becoming an interesting area of development for geosynthetics. And also a lot of exchange of knowledge, basically through the programs of the IGS. The most important is the educating the educators. I believe you guys in Australia have already done that, had suffered that, because it's a great opportunity in order to create critical mass, especially for the academia, who at the first stage, at the backbone, in order to start implementing or teaching this kind of materials. So it's a tough job, but I mean, it's great to do it because you see the results at the end stage. You see that now, for example, today we're having a conversation with the Pan American chapter, which at the end rolls all the chapters in the region. And as Chilean chapter, we are supporting the development of the chapter from Guatemala and from Bolivia. So the stage we were involved 3 years ago, where Peru and Brazil were helping us, now we are helping other chapters to start. So it's a great opportunity to share experiences. We talked in the past, Siamak, when we try to share some courses, some webinars. There are a lot of things to share. Nevertheless, probably the time and the language could separate us, but the passion for geosynthetics, it's bigger. So for sure, we can exchange ways to in some way spread the knowledge of geosynthetics for over the world.
Exactly. No, that's very good. And Francisco, as my last question, I
Sure.
want to again go back to your career and looking back, past few years that you've been involved in this industry. What is your highlight? What do you think that highlight is, and why? So that basically, it's something that you always remember, or something that influenced your career quite significantly.
Sure. Well, probably when someone like me is involved traveling so many countries and trying to prescribe a project, and that project finally sees the light. Probably one you can think this is like a sun. Finally, it's done, and you see this project already constructed and working. You can say that's a highlight. But honestly, for me, the highlight are so many highlights. I mean, each time I have the chance to travel to Central America, to Brazil, to Peru, Colombia, I mean, Mexico, it's the chance to be involved with my distributors, or being involved with the clients of my distributors, or some with engineering companies, sharing knowledge with them, having the chance to meet new people, meet new wise people. I have the chance in the past almost 6 years to share and to share with many wise people that have teach me many things. So that's something extremely valuable that I always take with me. And also the chance to keep knowing people that shows you culture of your country. And for example, each time I go to a country, I have the chance to go to a museum, for example, or to, of course, understand their culture, or their food. That's kind of things I like the most. When I was, beside, of course, my duty of prescript a solution, or sale or sale project, the most important is also people and connections. And when there's a will, and the most important is when you see that kind of synergies having a good end. That's amazing, and that is for me the biggest highlights of this job.
That's great. That's really great. It's like I've heard very similar comments from a lot of people actually, and I think it's really great to hear from you, Francisco. Yeah, people are highlights. The projects. You go from this project to the next project, and every one of those can be a highlight for anyone. But people are and interacting with different people, and being able to travel and see different places and different people is a great thing to experience. So
Absolutely.
that's what we have time for today. Francisco, it was great to see you again, and thank you for your time. And we will we will be back with another episode very soon. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samak, for this time, for this opportunity, and looking forward to hear from you in wherever we have the chance to meet again.
Sure. Perfect.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. See you later.
Cheers. Bye bye.